Hello?
Hey, is this Lars?
Hello.
Hey, man, it's JC King with the Exploded Show. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, good. Hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm probably just going to let this tape roll because I was going to tell you something weird about me. I know, like, you probably do a lot of Skypes with a lot of people. I don't like doing Skype video. It makes me feel awkward.
Yeah, well, when you're doing a podcast, you don't really need the video, I found.
Well, not at all. You don't need it all, but everybody, like, I'll call a lot of people in the podcast and they'll, like, do it the video thing, and then they won't see me, and I think they feel uncomfortable for some reason. But, like, I'm just, like, I like audio. I like just hearing somebody and projecting. We did an interview with this guy called Picasso one time, and I don't know if you can figure out what he does based on his name. Picasso. What do you think he does?
Some sort of phallic artist.
You nailed it, Mr. Lars. MC Lars, you are correct, sir. He paints with his penis for like bachelorette parties and things like that. But he's like, in a weird way, very like, I've got one of his paintings hanging up in my podcast studio because he's surprisingly like really good. And he was like 60 and he was like, I've been doing construction my whole life. I just got a divorce and I want to live my artistic dream. And so he quit, and for some reason, his artistic dream was to paint with his penis. And he did it, and like he's very successful now. In a weird way, it's a very inspiring story, sir. That's all I'm saying.
That's great. Well, you don't want a video chat with him.
Well, that's what I was going to tell you, is when we did it, he would only do video with us. So here he is dancing in like this purple, I think he thought he was on a TV show. I still to this day don't know if he realized it was a podcast, to be honest with you.
That's amazing.
So where are you? So MC Lars, we're talking to MC Lars, one of the legends. And I don't, to be honest, dude, I don't consider you like, I think you get thrown in with like the nerdcore people. I don't consider you like a nerdcore guy really, but maybe, I don't know. But I got turned on to you in like 2006, 2007. I was working at a top 40 radio station at the time. You had a song that had just come out, I think, called Hot Topic Is Not Punk Rock. And my night DJ said, check this guy out. You've got to hear more of him. And I was like, I was in love with it, dude. It was awesome shit.
Thanks, man. That's I appreciate that. And that was one of my rare moments where I feel like I wrote a song that was so simple and stupid, but people could definitely relate. And that song, yeah, it ended up in that radio world for a minute. That was
yes. I was a top 40 program director. And I got turned on to you by my night show host telling me that we should play that song. It was like, it had crossed over, man. But now, do you consider yourself like a nerdcore guy, or what do you consider yourself?
You know, a lot of my favorite artists and the artists I tour with are definitely nerdcore. And I got to give credit to MC Front a lot for coming up with the term. I think it describes what I do, which is kind of like, you could say, smart rap or nerdy rap. And yeah, in recent years, the genre has expanded to contain other artists who I feel like I really respect. And so I don't mind the term, but I don't necessarily use it to label myself that. But I don't shy away from it, you know?
Yeah, I got it. I mean, you tour with those guys. You're kind of, it's almost like you're kind of a little bit outside of the periphery, though. And the fact that you do so many, like a lot of those guys, like did Megaran. Megaran was on the show before. Megaran fits very comfortably into that genre, you know, like very comfortably. And what he does is right there. When I listen to so much of your stuff, it's really diverse. So in 1 second, you'll be doing something like that. But the next thing you know, you'll be doing something completely off the wall and different. It's like a little more varied, I think.
Thanks, man. I feel like I come at it from a rock and roll, punk rock background, and I do my own beats, and I think a lot of the stuff with nerdcore, it's like 8-bit, and it's stylistically, a lot of it's very similar. And on every song I do, I try to like bring in a different genre or a different, live musician. And Weird Al's a big influence on me in that way, in that he kind of plays with genre, but he definitely has nerdcore moments, but I don't know if we'd consider him nerdcore, because I guess he kind of predates it, you know?
Oh, definitely. And I would say that Weird Al, when he does his style parodies, which are so different than his straight up parodies, some of his stuff is, he does this song, can't remember the name of it now, but it's a Frank Zappa style parody, and it's on his Poodle Hat album.
Genius in France.
Genius in France. it is almost a Frank Zappa song. It's that good. Like Frank Zappa could
And
have done
and
that song.
and also the cool thing is Frank Zappa's son is played guitar on it.
Yeah, it's amazing what he does. And when you hear those things, his very first, I had it on cassette tape. I was going to very first cassette tape, but he had a song, and I
Cool.
have this theory that if you slow things down and put them to piano music, it doesn't matter what the lyrics are. They're like beautiful songs. So I did that to one of his songs, "I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead," and it's very like "I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead" lyrically is a pretty deep song. There's something going on there besides just straight up comedy, you know?
Yeah. No, that is, and that first record of his, he's kind of like he's a little more dark, and it's yeah,
I play Happy Birthday every birthday for everybody in my family. That's what we jam out to. And it's like,
yeah,
your mama's everybody's dying, but happy birthday to you. It's an
yeah.
amazing song. Yeah, Weird Al is one of my, I always have a Mount Rushmore of, I call them comedic influences, but maybe just people I grew up watching. And I'll see if these guys line up with who you got. I've got Weird Al, obviously big time. Dr. Demento, huge for me. Red Green, and then Beekman. Those were the four that I was like, these are the guys that comedically influenced me like nobody else.
That's awesome.
Did you ever see any Red Green?
I haven't heard of that. No,
Gotta watch it.
that
He's
was
on
like an
YouTube.
old. Okay, that's like it's like what? How would you describe it?
It's a Canadian public access show. So this is pretty, I guess this is a weird thing to be like, oh, this influenced me so much. But it's a Canadian public access show where a guy did, at least it was kind of like a comedy show, but he would always be teaching people how to fix things. He was like a handyman, think like Tim Allen Tool Time, but
Ah,
he wouldn't really fix them well. Like he would like always duct tape things together, or he'd drop the engine on his foot, or I don't know. It was a lot of physical comedy, but I loved it, man. I could never get enough Red Green. You could only watch it on PBS. Same thing with like Beekman. Beekman, I like everybody's like Bill Nye. I love Bill Nye. I was like, no, all day long, Beekman was my science guy.
that's awesome.
So let's talk more about you though. So okay, so more about you, because you do have all these different influences. You mentioned punk rock. Like who are the like? I get the feeling that when you say punk, it might be different than when other people say punk. I.e., when I think punk, I think Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Sex Pistols, stuff like that. The Ramones. I loved that stuff. There was this whole afterwards of like Sum 41, Blink 182, those guys. Where do you fall? Did you listen to the early punk, or did you fall in line with mainly the more pop punk, is what they would call it?
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area, and so like punk and ska were always big. Like the third wave ska. I mean, stuff like Aquabats and AFI were big, and I loved, of course, Green Day when they came out. But the Offspring, and I guess the earliest stuff I was into as a kid probably would be like Dead Kennedys.
Oh yeah. Yellow Biafra or whatever his name is. He sings with a lot of vibrato in his voice. That always threw me off.
Yeah, Jello Biafra. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
definitely has a unique voice.
yeah, yeah. I liked a lot of that early punk, and the most thing I liked of the most is the Sex Pistols. And one of my favorite quotes from Johnny Rotten, he said that when he went in Britain, people would show up with, and it shows you the difference between like American culture and British culture. But the reason people would show up in Britain with like patches on their jeans or safety pins in their jackets, things like that, is because they were poor. That was how they fixed holes. But then he came to the United States to perform, and he saw that people were doing it as a fashion statement, and it really showed him a big difference between the United States and Britain. It became a fashion thing here.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
no, have a book I really recommend is Henry Rollins' is Get in the Van. He talks about what it was like to go to England and playing hardcore music, and like how they were very obsessed with fashion, compared to like the LA hardcore stuff of the era, like the Mohawks and everything.
Oh,
Where
so he had like almost like a inverse experience.
yeah, which is kind of interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that is interesting. Henry Rollins is amazing. I can't like if you're out in the West Coast, he does like I think like a radio show on stuff. Like Henry Rollins is all over the place. He is one of the most talented dudes. I watched him do stand-up comedy one time, and he was really funny. He's amazing.
That's awesome.
So tell me more about yourself. So you start like you go like, okay, I'm gonna like you were influenced by punk, you were influenced by music like that. So what age were you when you're just like, screw it, I'm gonna start making music?
I started writing like my own versions of songs when I was 8 or 9, and then um, I started playing guitar when I was probably like 12, and it was all my parents kind of lived far out in the country, so it was always hard to coordinate band rehearsals. So I just realized that it was like easier to make music on my own, and
Yeah.
like write songs and do stuff on the computer. And so I are super old programs like Cubase and
Yeah, I
Rebirth
remember Cubase. I got Cubase right now. I'm using an Alesis board that I
oh
bought
wow,
several years ago. It still is like works in. I'm one of those guys. If it works, I'm not going to repair it. So I got an Alesis board that's rigged up. It came with Cubase. That was the
that's
program that it
crazy.
came with to use for the USB, so you could multi-track record.
That's awesome. I always loved how like I loved how I could do MIDI with that and create triggers triggers synths within the program. Like that was
Oh
awesome.
wow.
So that would have been like the mid '90s, and then I fell in love with hip hop. Probably high school, but more like in college, like underground hip hop. That was like a golden era for indie rap.
So what are
And
you talking about though? Like, cause they're like when I think indie rap, I think like Talib Kweli or Mos Def or somebody like that. But that's like a street. That's more street. Is it? Who was the guys you were listening to?
yeah, I would say that like Dr. Octagon and Deltron 3030 kind of were my first influences. Um,
You ever heard of Aesop Rock? I think is his
yeah,
name. Yeah,
yeah. I
he's good.
actually opened for him in a show up in Washington State.
He has this great song, "Fast Car, Danger, Fire, and Knives." It's a awesome song.
Yeah, he's awesome, man.
Yeah,
He's great, and he's very yeah. I like how he's so prolific and he's super interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. So how about you? What brought you from mainstream radio to the digital world?
To be honest with you, dude, I keep a foot in both worlds right now, but even today is a great example of why I prefer this. So the thing about the internet, it's like the blessing and the curse. Everybody's got a podcast, right? Everybody's got a podcast because everybody can have a podcast. And I was very inspired by Kevin Smith and Smodcast, and he said, because I've been doing terrestrial radio for 12, 13 years. Like, I'm 33. So basically from the time I could get a real job, I got out, started doing radio part-time and worked my way up. And the frustrating part about regular radio is, especially when you're doing what I started in top 40, you're limited to these 30-second breaks or this 10. They want you to say more with less is the keys. Can you do it 8 seconds? Can you do that in 8 seconds? And you lose your identity. You lose the guys that I was influenced by growing up, like Howard Stern or like even like a talk radio guy like Limbaugh. His skill set is really to be admired, whether you like him politically or not. His skill set is way up there in the radio world. And so I grew up listening to all these radio guys, and I thought, oh, that's what it'll be like when you work in the field. And then you get there and you're like, oh my God, it's nothing like that whatsoever. Today I had a giant fight over a bit that I did on my morning show because I was trying to call other radio stations, steal their prizes, and give them away on my show. I thought it was hilarious. The program director did not find it as funny as I did. So then when you get into this world, you can be more true. You don't have to worry about like a demographic. So if you're like, you're a great example. Your music is a great example. You make such diverse music, you probably have a very wide ranging audience. But if you were to be like a Jay-Z, if you were to start experimenting or do anything too crazy, your regular fans would turn on you. They'd go, well, this isn't what I signed up for. So in radio, you're talking to top 40 listeners. Well, you got to only be this one thing. But in the digital world, you can just be who you are, put it out there. And over time, if you're decent, if you're good, if you've got something to say, hopefully build up an audience. But I'm filibustering, but I mean, that's kind of more or less kind of how I ended up here, is that it's the freedom of doing it on the internet and being more honest with who you are is very appealing to me as a broadcaster, because I consider my art talking into a microphone. It doesn't seem like an art, but I consider this my thing that makes me feel probably how you feel when you come up with a really cool song or something.
That's awesome, man. That's cool, and it's like that whole yeah, having more freedom to connect with a smaller audience is better because it sucks to. I feel like if you're a band on a major label and you haven't and you're not Jay-Z, you always have that axe over your neck that you could get dropped. But so it's kind of interesting, and it's interesting you talked about like your first foray into radio because guys like Howard Stern and Rush Limbaugh, I mean, they come from a different time
Yeah,
too.
yeah, they were a much different time. Number one, they it's probably similar to the music industry, honestly. Number one, they got these huge salaries because even at a local, like you could be a local personality and make a really good living then. But it was still a little underdeveloped. Like the formats weren't as structured in the '80s, so they were able to experiment more and develop the structure that came later. Well, once the structure's in place, everybody wants you to adhere to that, and if you try to break it, they're telling you you're doing the wrong thing. And I go, man, I just want to come up with my own thing. I want to blaze my own trail. And the internet has given me the opportunity to do that. And I imagine, if you ever run into, I mean, you've had, compared to some other guys in the scene that you're in, you've had an amazing amount of success as far as having some crossover appeal and having some mainstream appeal and reaching this huge diverse audience. Have you ever butt your head up against the corporate forces, or have you managed to avoid that?
Well, back in like 2004, I definitely had meetings with major labels and that stuff was on the table, like but it just didn't seem like the right move and it's like I was fortunate enough to be able to keep my masters and I've had friends who signed to major labels who've been dropped and signed again and it's just like I've always wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
I think I was kind of early with the crowdfunding stuff like Kickstarter. I did my first Kickstarter in 2011.
Oh, wow.
um, Now I'm on Patreon, which is great because I put out 2 songs a month, and it's patreon.com/mclars, and that is super cool because I have a lot of freedom, and then I can put out those songs in any way I want after that, and they're already like recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's cool, man. Like I think that I've been very fortunate. I've been doing this full time for 13 years.
No, it's amazing, dude. I mean, it's amazing. And I still have to maintain, like, I'm in that the still grinding it out process where I got like 3 or 4 jobs just to keep the thing I love going. So I'm in the grinding it out stage, but I tell myself, even though I'm 33 now, which is getting up there in the entertainment world, you're getting old. It's like, shit, what's it all worth? But then you go, well, it's all I know how to do. It's what it comes down to at some point. This is it. Yeah, there's no other thing I got, man. This is it. So do you ever see, like, you see the ebbs and flows? So one second you'll be the hottest shit on the block, then you go down a little bit, then you keep it back up. As you go through the ups and downs, what keeps your head in the game?
Um, I mean, I think I really like working with young people. I like the education element of what I do. I do workshops in schools, and like that's super fun. I feel like hip hop is always changing and it's always interesting, and I think it fascinates me to see the intersection of social media with tech, with hip hop as a postmodern culture, and then like how now things like vaporwave and stuff have kind of taken the place of mashup. So I'm like a big fan of popular culture and how it communicates grander things. So
Yeah.
I kind of always try to come at it from a more bigger perspective.
Yeah, definitely, man. And so, I mean, the idea of like almost passing the torch to the next generation, those kind of things, it gives you a lot of personal satisfaction.
Yeah, I think that that's like important because I think like you have to. It's important to look outside of yourself. Like that's like to realize there's a bigger reason for doing this though, like you said.
And so, like, I want to see if we're kind of on equal. I'm curious. I could Wikipedia it and find out, but I didn't. So forgive me. But I'm trying to figure out kind of roundabouts where we're at age wise. I'm 33. Are you older or younger? Where are you
Yeah, I'm
from?
34. I'm 34, so we're pretty close.
Okay, we're pretty close. Okay, there you go. Man, you were really, if you were in 2004 talking to labels and stuff, you were like, what, 18, 17, 18, 19,
I
somewhere
was
like that. You were young.
Yeah, I would have been like 21. Yeah, when
Wow.
that's happened. So
Yeah. I wasted a lot of those years though, man. Because when you're doing the radio, when it was like young, I had my like early, I don't know, it sounds weird to say, but I had my almost like where I enjoyed the little bit of local celebrity too much and indulged myself. I didn't keep my head in the game the way I should have. I had to hit like 25 before I was like, oh shit, I got to get back on track, man. I'm having too much fun, but I'm not moving the ball down the field enough. So it is what it is. So you got a new album coming out though. I want to promote that. So you got a new EP coming out in July. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's stuff from Patreon, and it's got a lot of collaborations with friends, and there's it's like 9 songs, and I'm calling it the Jeff Sessions. Uh-huh.
There you go, the Jeff Sessions. I like it.
That's hilarious. So that's coming out, and then I'm working on an album with Mega Ran, and he's a great friend, and we'll be out on tour this fall.
I saw him. We were at some Comic Con, which has got to be great for. I know in the podcasting world, Comic Cons are great promotionally because we can go out and make new fans almost if I wanted to every weekend, but I space it out. I do it 4 or 5 times a year. But I saw him at a Comic Con, and he was performing. He had a really guy that's just amazing, and hopefully you know this guy. Creative Mindframe was with him, also known as One Up, who's a great nerdcore artist, and he was.
Oh
playing,
yeah, he's dope.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was playing saxophone, and then he had a guitar player with this band. I think there was a rock band called 8-Bit. So it's got this rock band playing the guitars, Mega Ran rapping, One Up playing the saxophone. It was amazing. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but I loved every bit of it. And I wasn't really up on because I just hear music and I go, I like that or I don't like that. I like that. I didn't really know it was nerdcore or what it was. And then when he came by to talk to us, I was just like, this guy's the nicest guy, the coolest guy. Everything about him, he feels like, I was telling Serial, my co-host, this the other day, is I feel like he's one of those guys that's just on the verge of breaking through. For some reason, he feels like he's right there, you know, like he's just right on the verge of breaking through to huge because he's got that, you want to hang out with that guy personality that like really successful people have.
Yeah, and I think it's like everyone knows him and everyone loves him, and he just one day he'll have that song, and I feel like he'll cross over, and I really believe in him, and he's really great to tour with, and he's in the UK right now.
I watched those Facebook videos you guys do where you're always doing like freestyle raps for like 37 minutes.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, we try to do those a lot.
That was a lot of fun to watch. I love it, man. All right, so where can people find out more about MC Lars? I know that you want to promote your stuff, so where can people check you out?
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm on mclars.com, MC Lars on Twitter, MC Lars on Facebook, and the best place to support if you go to patreon.com/MC Lars, you get everything as it comes out, and that's basically it. And yeah, man, and I want to thank you for having me on your show and spreading the word and for the kind words.
No, man, I have been listening to you since that guy Scotty was his name. He turned me on to you as my night show host in Manhattan, Kansas in like 2006, 2007. Since I heard that first song, I was like, and then I just kept going song after song after album after album. And I was just like, this is like amazing what this guy does because it's hard to be unique. It's hard to be different in a world where everything's been done before. And you managed to pull off, even in a genre world, even in a segmented world, you manage to pull off unique every time I hear you, man. And that's impossible to do.
That's super nice, and I can't think of a nicer thing to say, so thank you.
So are you and I babble too much, but I'm just curious. You're on the West Coast now?
I'm from the West Coast, but right now I live in New York.
Oh, there you go. All right.
How about you? You're central?
I'm in Waco, Texas. I live, by the way, if you hear Waco, Texas, what's the first thing you think of?
Well, unfortunately, David Koresh.
I live about 5 minutes away from that place.
That's hilarious. Well, maybe not hilarious. Were you living there when all that stuff went down?
No. I'm an import. So, like, I just know, like, I knew it happened here, but I came here like 6 years ago. Because, again, the radio thing, you just, radio is like you got to be ready to pack up and move every 3 to 5 years. So This was one of my stops on my radio tour. And I got this house, and I found out I was like 5 minutes away from the Branch Davidian complex. So I drive by there because I wear glasses, right? And David Koresh, I always call him Jesus with astigmatism. So I drive by there all the time with my glasses on, like slow. And I did this for like, I don't do it anymore. There was about a month where I did this on my way to work every morning. I kept waiting for somebody to be out by the mailbox because there's a couple of the remainders out there still. And to see me with my glasses on, and I was just going to kind of try to be the next, because I thought I have glasses, David Gresh has glasses, maybe I could be the next Koresh, you know, maybe I could lead the next cult movement. Because that's really, if you want to talk about life goals, man, if I could lead a cult, Jesus Christ, I would be in the, L. Ron Hubbard figured it out, so surely I can too.
Well, there you go.
With
We
that,
went there.
wait. This is the point where you say, JC, I'm a Scientologist. That is not cool, buddy.
Well, hey, we were there. I went there twice. We went once. We pulled up and read the all the memorial stuff. And another time we were there, and then the neighbors were really mad about where we parked the van because I'm sure they get tons of fools coming through trying to
Yeah.
take pictures. And it's like, yeah, it's like I still feel like there's this whole vibe that the government came and overstepped their boundaries, but he apparently was doing some weird stuff. I don't know. It was like a weird time.
Yeah, that's where we got to end the interview because I'll put my tinfoil hat on and then I'll just start talking about the government murdering people. And then you'll be like, this guy's crazy. He definitely checked out InfoWars once or twice. So, MC Lars, you've been a pleasure, dude. You're awesome. I really appreciate it. I hope you, maybe we can have you on again sometime when you got more stuff to promote. And hopefully there's a time and a place where you're in the Texas area where I can come check you out.
Thanks, man. Sounds good. And have a great night.
You too, buddy.